Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot, and in this video I want to present the MCAS system of the 737 MAX to you. Well, before we start with what the MCAS actually is, let's quickly have a look into why we actually need it. And to do that, let's compare the engine of the 737NG that we can see on screen over here in the PMDG with the engine of the 737 MAX that you can see over here. The important thing for you to notice is the location of the engine and the engine's size. So if you have a look into the 737 MAX engine up here and try to memorize where the engine is located and how big that beam of the engine that connects it with the wing is, and now compare it to the 737NG, then you can quickly see that the engine in the 737 MAX is located quite a little bit further upwards than the engine of the 737NG. Now, this is obviously going to cause a handling difference, since the line of the thrust is now located at a different point, and therefore when the thrust changes, the airplane might encounter slightly different behavior. Now, since Boeing originally designed the 737 MAX to be flown by 737NG pilots without the need for any additional training, obviously the handling characteristics of the aircraft need to be nearly the same. And this is basically where things started to get interesting. Now, the actual location of the 737 MAX versus 737NG engine meant that there was hardly any difference. However, there was a difference when the airplane had a very high angle of attack. And because of that handling difference, the MCAS system has been introduced. Now, what exactly is MCAS then? Let's go over it. MCAS is a pitch stability augmentation function designed to operate at elevated angles of attack. The purpose is to increase control column forces by commanding the stabilizer in the nose down direction at elevated AOAs. The MCAS function becomes active when the airplane exceeds a threshold AOA, and stabilizer trim inputs in the nose down direction are added incrementally if AOA continues to increase. Stabilizer trim commands are based on AOA and Mach number. As AOA is reduced below threshold AOA, the commanded stabilizer trim is removed. If AOA is again increased above threshold AOA, MCAS becomes active and again commands stabilizer trim inputs in the nose down direction. The MCAS function controls the stabilizer trim motor at the flaps extended speed trim function rate. The flight control computer uses the corrected AOA value to activate MCAS. This logic uses both AOA vanes and filters out small differences between the vanes and provides a single corrected value to the MCAS function. The MCAS function contains logic that limits the amount of nose-down stabilizer trim movement to preserve elevator authority for pitch control. When MCAS activates, the commanded limit logic computes a nose-down stabilizer trim limit. If the stabilizer trim reaches the computed limit, the speed trim fail light illuminates, and the speed trim system, including the speed trim function and MCAS function, is inhibited for the remainder of the flight. Manual stabilizer trim, main electric stabilizer trim, and autopilot trim are not affected by the commanded limit logic. The command limit logic inhibits the speed trim system when the computed nose-down stabilizer trim limit is reached within 5 minutes following MCAS activation, or before the autopilot has been engaged for 1 continuous minute following MCAS activation. The command limit logic is reset after 5 minutes or after the autopilot has been engaged for 1 minute, whichever occurs first. Conditions for MCAS operation are as follows: AOA above the threshold, up to Mach 0.84, 10 seconds after takeoff, flaps up, and autopilot not engaged. So, the infamous MAX crashes have caused quite a bit of trouble related to the MCAS system. So the question that most of you will be asking yourself is, so how can I turn MCAS off? And indeed, before I did my very first flight in the MAX, even though it would probably not have been necessary, I just checked once again as to, okay, how can I turn the thing off? And it's actually very, very easy. So all you need to do is take the stabilizer trim cutout switches and turn them both, or even a single one of them, to cut out. Now, I'm filming this one in the NG, so they say main electric and autopilot trim up here. In the 737 MAX it's actually just primary and backup, so all you need to do is this, and MCAS is out. And it has no way of coming back on again. At this point we can maybe also talk about the influence of the memory items associated with airspeed unreliable onto the MCAS. So when you encounter an airspeed unreliable situation in the 737 MAX, which is basically what happened when the two 737 MAXes that went down due to MCAS, or rather contributed by MCAS, happened. So the airspeed unreliable memory items basically tell you to switch off the autopilot, flight directors and auto thrust, and then set a certain pitch target and a certain thrust. So with the flaps extended, you're looking at about 10 degrees pitch, 80% N1, and with the flaps retracted, you're looking at 4 degrees pitch, 75% N1. And when those values are set, the airplane is going to fly. So very important over here is the following. Seeing that both of the MAXes which crashed just after, or encountered the unreliable speed situation just after takeoff, the flaps were extended. And it is very important to note up here what the procedure says and does not say. So when we go back to the list of conditions for MCAS to even be enabled, you will notice that the flaps have to be up. Now, going over the airspeed unreliable memory items over here, there is no procedure whatsoever involved in it to tell you to retract the flaps. So the flaps are going to stay extended. With the flaps extended, MCAS cannot activate. So for that reason, Boeing did believe that it was not needed initially to tell the crews about the newly added function called MCAS. Now, it was reasonable to assume this. There were more reasons involved in it as well, so it wasn't just this one, but this one is just a single line of defense amongst others that were in place initially, causing Boeing not to advise pilots of the MCAS function. Now, MCAS would be disabled following the runaway stabilizer memory items, so in case you did encounter an MCAS activation, then you would go over the runaway stabilizer memory items and they tell you to hold the control column firmly, then disconnect autopilot and remove the flight directors from view, and if the runaway does not stop, it would tell you to turn off the stabilizer trim cutout switches. So that would have disabled MCAS as well. From here on, it would basically be up to the pilots to fly the airplane with manual trim, and you can see those little handles over here on the trim wheel. You would extend those outwards and then you can rotate the wheel like that. However, the forces needed to rotate the trim wheel are directly reliant to the speed of the aircraft, so it does become more difficult to manually trim the plane when you accelerate to very high speeds, and that might have contributed to the second accident. Now, I'm very much going into the actual accidents that happen over here, but that is actually not meant as the main topic for this video. But if you are interested in me doing a video on the two crashes of the 737 MAX before the airplane got grounded and MCAS got fixed, then do let me know in the comments below, and that is something that I could certainly look into if it is of any interest for you. But do let me know in the comments below if that interests you. Alright, that is going to conclude this video on MCAS. Thank you very much for your attention. I do hope that you have enjoyed this one. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, make sure to leave a like on YouTube as well, as it does help with the algorithms of YouTube. Finally, if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Do let me know if you're interested in the video on the two MAX accidents and some of the input that was given by the FAA and the French BEA outside of the scope of the actual air crash investigation report. thank you very much for watching. Finally, if you are really in love with my content, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But in the meantime, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope that you enjoyed this one, and I'm looking forward to see you all again right on the next one.